The classroom smelled like failure and cheap disinfectant. I adjusted my sensory stalks, watching the human instructor pace before the assembled students of Hunter Academy, Class 719. My species, the Vorthak, had been training elite monster subjugation teams for 6,000 cycles. We knew excellence when we saw it. This was not excellence. "All right, listen up," Instructor Callus barked, his mandibles clicking with barely concealed irritation. "Assignment results are posted. Check your datapads and report to your designated training halls." Around me, students erupted into excited chittering, whistles, and the occasional victory screech. The Draknor twins pumped their scaled fists in the air. Aquilin females' bioluminescent patches flashed brilliant green with joy. Even young Breck, the perpetually anxious Kryn, managed a relieved exhale that fogged his breathing apparatus. Then there was her. The human sat 3 rows ahead of me, completely still, staring at her datapad with an expression I had learned to recognize during my 2 decades studying Earth media. It was the face someone made right before they either started laughing hysterically or punching walls. Maybe both. Her name was Maya Okonkwo, and she had just been assigned to Hunter Class F, the failed class, the dumping ground, the place where the Academy quietly shuffled students who showed absolutely zero aptitude for monster command, subjugation, or really anything involving creatures larger than a standard food preparation animal. "You have got to be kidding me," she muttered, her voice carrying that particular human quality that sounded like verbal eye-rolling. 18 months of top marks in theory, perfect scores on the written exams, and they stick me in the class that couldn't command a sleeping hamster. I should probably explain something here. Monster hunting, as practiced across the civilized galaxy, is not about killing. Oh no, any idiot with a plasma rifle can kill a rampaging Gorthak or a territorial spineback. True hunters subjugate. They dominate. They bend these apex predators to their will through a combination of psionic pressure, chemical signals, and what the humans call, quote, big, scary energy. Class A students could cow a void serpent with a glance. Class B could stop a charging thunderhorn mid-stride. Class C through E showed progressively less talent, but still maintained basic competency. Class F students had been known to get chased by their own assigned training creatures, repeatedly. Maya stood, gathering her supplies with sharp, angry movements. Several other students were doing the same, all wearing similar expressions of shock and dismay. I recognized Token, a Maril, whose confidence had apparently been shattered in under 10 seconds. And Jessup, the human male who had spent the last month bragging about his natural predator instincts. He looked like someone had just told him his entire personality was a lie, which, to be fair, they kind of had. "Okonkwo," Instructor Callus called out, his tone softening by approximately 0.03%. "A word." The human approached his desk while the rest of us filed out. I lingered near the doorway, my species' excellent hearing picking up their conversation despite my very professional attempt to look busy with my datapad. "I know this is not what you expected," Callus said. "You think?" Maya's sarcasm could have stripped paint from a hull. "I scored 97% on the practical evaluation simulations." "Simulations, yes. But when you stood before the actual creatures during assessment week, what happened?" Silence. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. "They did not respond to you," Callus continued. "Not with fear, not with respect. They simply stared, as if you were furniture. So give me another chance. Let me try again with different creatures. Maybe it was just those specific It was not just those specific creatures. It was all of them. Every single monster you encountered over 5 days of testing looked at you like you were a particularly boring rock. Callus's tone shifted, becoming almost gentle. You have excellent theoretical knowledge. Your tactical planning is superb, but command presence cannot be taught, Maya. Either you have it, or you do not. And I don't. The creatures seem to think so, yes. I did not hear her response, if she made one, because Instructor Yevik grabbed my shoulder and steered me toward my own assigned training hall. Class B, thank you very much. Respectable, solid, a bit boring compared to the glory of Class A, but nothing to be ashamed of. Still, as I walked, I could not help wondering about the human who had just been told she would never achieve her dream. Humans were strange about failure. Some species accepted it gracefully, adjusted their paths, and moved on. But humans? Humans either gave up completely or became absolutely unhinged in their determination to prove everyone wrong. I had a feeling I knew which category Maya Okonkwo fell into. The F-class training hall was exactly as depressing as Maya had imagined. While the upper classes trained in the Grand Arena, a massive facility with variable terrain, climate control, and observation decks for admiring crowds, Class F got Sub-Level 3, Section K. A concrete box that smelled like mildew and broken dreams. The variable terrain consisted of some rubber mats in one corner and a suspiciously stained sandbox. 8 students stood in a loose cluster, each looking more miserable than the last. Their instructor, a grizzled Thexian named Grell, had the air of someone who had given up on life approximately 15 cycles ago and was just running out the clock until retirement. "Right," Grell wheezed, his breathing tubes rattling. "Welcome to Class F. I am required to tell you that every student has potential and that hard work can overcome any obstacle." He paused. "That is what I am required to tell you. What I am actually telling you is this: lower your expectations. Significantly, you are here because you cannot command monsters. Statistically speaking, most of you will transfer to support roles, handlers, cleaners, equipment maintenance." "This is garbage!" Jessup exploded. "I demand a retest. There is no way I belong in this class. I have been hunting since I was 12 years old. I have faced down bears, wolves, creatures without psionic receptors," Grell interrupted, unimpressed. "Which is like bragging that you can win a staring contest with a rock. Congratulations." Maya felt a laugh bubble up in her chest despite her awful mood. She swallowed it down. "Our first exercise," Grell continued, shuffling toward a control panel on the wall, "will be simple exposure. I will release a Class E threat creature. That is, for those of you unclear on the classification system, a baby. A literal infant monster that poses essentially zero danger to anything larger than a small rodent. Your task is to approach it without getting bitten, scratched, or otherwise embarrassed." "That is it?" Talkin asked, his voice squeaking with either relief or horror. Maya could not tell. "That is it. Lower your expectations. Remember?" Grell pressed a button. A section of the far wall slid open, revealing a small enclosure. Something moved inside, making tiny chirping sounds. Out waddled the creature. It looked like someone had combined a puppy, a lizard, and a pineapple, then shrunk the result down to the size of a football. It had huge, liquid eyes, stubby little legs, and scales that shimmered through colors like an oil slick. Its tail wagged uncertainly. "This is a juvenile prismback," Grell announced. "Native to Talos 4. Adults stand 3 meters tall, and can project hard light constructs capable of slicing through reinforced steel. This one can project shapes roughly as threatening as soap bubbles. Approach when ready. Nobody moved. The prism back chirped again, noticed the students, and immediately tried to scurry behind Grell's legs. Grell stepped aside. The creature sat down, looking confused and slightly scared. "Any time now," Grell said, inspecting his claws with elaborate disinterest. Jessup, apparently determined to salvage some dignity, stepped forward. He squared his shoulders, puffed out his chest, and fixed the tiny creature with what he probably thought was an intimidating glare. The prism back tilted its head, made a sound like a squeaky toy, and promptly urinated on the floor. Then it ran. Not away from Jessup, interestingly, but in a tight circle around him, leaving a trail of panic pee in its wake, while making increasingly frantic chirping noises. "Stop! Heel! Sit!" Jessup barked commands while spinning in place, trying to track the creature's movement. "I said, sit!" The prismback did not sit. It did, however, somehow manage to trip Jessup, who went down hard onto the concrete. His head missed the puddle of urine by centimeters. "Well," Grell observed, "that was something." Maya pressed her lips together, trying desperately not to laugh. This was not funny. This was her future. Her failed, miserable future. But also, it was kind of hilarious. 3 more students tried. 3 more students failed in increasingly creative ways. One got head-butted in the shin, which should not have hurt, but apparently did based on the colorful Quillen cursing that followed. Another managed to corner the creature only to have it project a small soap bubble construct that popped in his face, startling him into falling backward into the sandbox. The prism back, now thoroughly agitated, retreated to the far corner of the room and made itself as small as possible, shaking. "Okonkwo," Grell said, his tone suggesting he expected nothing. "Your turn." Maya sighed and stepped forward. She had no idea what she was doing. Clearly, aggressive posturing did not work. Commands did not work. Trying to physically corner it did not work. So maybe, just maybe, she should try not doing any of those things. She sat down on the floor, cross-legged, about 2 meters from the terrified creature. Then she just waited. "What are you doing?" Jessup hissed from his position near the wall, still nursing his bruised ego and tailbone. "Being furniture," Maya replied. "Apparently I am good at that." The prismback watched her with one large eye, its body still pressed against the corner. Maya did not move, did not speak, did not even look directly at it. She just sat, relaxed, and started humming under her breath. An old song her grandmother used to sing. Something about rivers and coming home. Seconds ticked by, then minutes. The creature's shaking slowed. Its breathing, visible in the gentle rise and fall of its scales, became less frantic. It took one small step toward her, then another. Maya kept humming, kept her eyes on the middle distance, kept her body language completely non-threatening. The prismback reached her knee and sniffed cautiously. Its wet nose pressed against her leg. Then, with a tiny chirp that sounded almost relieved, it climbed into her lap and curled up like a scaly cat. "Huh," Grell said, and for the first time since class started, he actually sounded interested. Maya looked down at the creature purring, yes, purring, in her lap, its tail wrapped around her wrist like a warm bracelet. "Good boy," she whispered, scratching gently behind what she assumed were its ears. "You are okay now. Nobody is going to hurt you." The prismback's scales rippled through warm golden colors. It nuzzled deeper into her lap, and apparently deciding she was the safest thing in the entire room, fell asleep. Class F stared in silence. "Well," Grell said eventually, his breathing tubes making a sound like thoughtful wheezing. "I suppose that is technically a success? Congratulations, Okonkwo. You have achieved the minimum possible standard of not being actively rejected by a creature with the brain capacity of a particularly stupid shoe." Maya knew he was trying to diminish what had just happened, to lower expectations, to maintain the atmosphere of failure that permeated Class F. But sitting there with a sleeping monster baby in her lap, feeling its trust and warmth, she felt something shift inside her chest. Not hope, exactly. Hope was too strong a word. Call it curiosity. "Class dismissed," Grell announced. "Same time tomorrow. Try not to embarrass yourselves worse than today, though I acknowledge that is setting the bar extremely high." Students filed out, shooting Maya looks ranging from jealousy to confusion. She waited until the prism back woke up naturally, then gently set it back in its enclosure. It chirped sadly as she closed the door, pressing its face against the transparent barrier. "See you tomorrow," she told it. As she left, she did not notice Instructor Grell making notes on his datapad, his expression far more thoughtful than his words had suggested. She also did not notice the Vorthak student, me, watching from the observation window of the upper level, my sensory stalks quivering with interest. Because here is what I had learned in my 20 years studying humans. They were terrible at following the rules of how things were supposed to work. And Maya Okonkwo, sitting on a dirty floor, humming to a creature that everyone else had terrified, had just broken the first rule of Monster Command. She had made it not about dominance, which was either going to be completely irrelevant to her future or absolutely everything. I made a note to keep watching Class F, for research purposes, obviously. Not because I found the human fascinating, not because something about the way that Prismback had chosen her, specifically her, made my analytical mind itch with questions. Research purposes. Definitely just research. Day 2 of Class F training began with Grell looking even more exhausted than usual, which Maya had not thought possible. "Today," he announced, "we move up to a Class D threat. Before you panic, that means something approximately as dangerous as an angry house cat. Maybe a small, unenthusiastic dog." He pressed the control panel. A different door opened. What emerged was not small. It was not unenthusiastic. And it definitely was not a cat. The creature stood nearly a meter tall at the shoulder, built like a compact tank with 6 legs, armored plates along its spine, and a face that looked designed by a committee whose only instruction was, "Make it mean." Its eyes glowed a dull red. Its mouth, when it yawned, revealed 3 rows of very sharp, very real teeth. "This," Grell said with the air of someone introducing a disappointing relative, "is a razor spine. Juvenile, obviously. Adults are used in military applications. This one is approximately 4 months old and has the temperament of a caffeinated toddler with anger management issues." The razor spine spotted the cluster of students and immediately charged. Class F scattered like startled birds. Jessup actually screamed, which he would later insist was a tactical vocal warning. The razor spine seemed to find this hilarious. If the rattling sound it made could be interpreted as laughter, and chased him in circles around the training hall. "Stop running!" Grell shouted. "You are triggering its prey drive." "Then what should I do?" Jessup yelled back, vaulting over the sandbox with surprising agility. "Stand your ground. Assert dominance. Literally anything other than what you are currently doing." Jessup tried to stop. He really did. But momentum and terror carried him directly into the wall. He bounced off and landed in a heap. The razor spine pounced, pinning him down, and began enthusiastically licking his face with a tongue that looked like sandpaper wrapped around gravel. "It is licking me," Jessup said, his voice strangled between disgust and confusion. "Yes," Grell confirmed. "You have been marked as a chew toy. Congratulations." It took 3 students and Grell to pull the creature off Jessup, who lay on the floor looking like he was reconsidering every life choice that had led to this moment. The razor spine, released, immediately began investigating the other students. It approached Token, who froze in place like a statue. The creature sniffed him thoroughly, sneezed, and moved on, apparently finding him boring. It checked each student in turn. Some it ignored. Some it growled at. One unfortunate Quillen got head-butted in the knee hard enough to leave a bruise. Then it reached Maya. She had been standing against the wall, observing, trying to understand the pattern. The creature did not respond to commands, did not respond to aggressive posturing. It seemed to operate on pure instinct and emotional response. The razor spine stopped in front of her, tilting its armored head. Its red eyes studied her face. Maya did not move, did not speak. Just like yesterday, she simply existed. No threat, no challenge, just presence. The creature made a low rumbling sound in its chest, not a growl exactly, something else. Then it did something that made Grell's breathing tubes actually stop for a second. It bowed. Not a full bow, nothing dramatic. Just a slight lowering of its head and front legs, the posture a dog might make inviting play. But for a razor spine, a species whose entire evolutionary strategy was built around never showing submission to anything, it was significant. Maya, operating on instinct, lowered herself to one knee, bringing her head level with the creature's. "Hey there," she said softly. "You are a tough guy. Are not you? All armored up with nowhere to go." The razor spine's tail, a stubby thing covered in the spine-like protrusions that gave the species its name, wagged. Actually wagged. "Impossible," Grell muttered. Maya extended her hand slowly, palm down, letting the creature sniff. It did, its wet nose leaving a trail of, well, she tried not to think about what, on her skin. Then it leaned forward and bumped its head against her palm. An invitation. She scratched behind its ear plates, finding the soft spot she had noticed when watching it interact with the others. The razor spine made a sound like a malfunctioning engine that might have been purring. Its eyes dimmed from aggressive red to a calmer orange. "Good boy," Maya murmured. "You just wanted someone to not be scared of you, did not you?" The creature's response was to flop onto its side, exposing its less armored belly and look at her expectantly. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," Jessup said from his position on the floor, still covered in slobber. "She belly rubbed it into submission?" "I did not," Maya started, but stopped because she kind of had, and arguing seemed pointless. She rubbed the creature's belly. It made happy grunting sounds and its back leg kicked involuntarily, scratching at the air. Grell stared at his datapad, then at Maya, then at his datapad again, as if hoping the words would change if he looked away and back fast enough. "Class dismissed," he said finally. "Except you, Okonkwo. You stay." The other students left, shooting Maya looks that ranged from envy to suspicion. She stood, the razor spine rolling back to its feet and staying close to her leg like a massive armored puppy. "What did you do?" Grell asked when they were alone. I scratched it? Before that, what did you do to make it bow? Nothing. I just stood there. Grell's breathing tubes rattled with frustration. Monsters do not bow to nothing. They bow to strength, to dominance, to power. They bow to... He stopped mid-sentence, his expression shifting. You did not challenge it at all, did you? No. You did not try to dominate it, or scare it, or assert yourself as the alpha predator in the room. That seemed to be working really well for everyone else, Maya said dryly, so I figured I would try something different. But what you did should not work, Grell insisted. Showing weakness to a predator species invites attack, not submission. I did not show weakness. I showed... Maya searched for the word. Neutrality? I was just there, existing. Not a threat, but not prey either. Just a thing in the room. The razor spine, apparently tired of being ignored, head-butted Maya's leg gently. She absently scratched its head. Grell watched this with an expression that might have been thoughtful or might have been indigestion. Report to Training Hall 5 tomorrow at dawn, before regular class. Why? Because I am either witnessing the beginning of something revolutionary or you have stumbled into dumb luck twice in a row, and I need to determine which before you get yourself killed trying for a third time. Maya wanted to argue, but the razor spine chose that moment to flop against her legs, nearly knocking her over. And she had to admit that maybe Grell had a point about the potential danger. Fine, she said. Dawn, Training Hall 5. She managed to coax the razor spine back into its enclosure with promises of treats, which Grell provided from a storage locker, while looking like each piece of dried meat he handed over was being extracted directly from his soul. As Maya left, she passed the observation windows of the upper level. She thought she saw movement, a shape watching from the shadows, but when she looked directly, there was nothing there. Just her imagination. Probably. I was definitely not hiding in the shadows watching Maya Okonkwo leave the training hall. That would be weird and unprofessional and completely beneath a Vorthak researcher of my standing. But if I had been watching, purely hypothetically, I might have noticed the way she walked differently now. Shoulders back, head high, like someone who had just proven something to herself, even if she did not yet know what. And I might have accessed the security footage from both of her Class F sessions, downloading it to my personal research files. For academic purposes, to study the anomaly of a human with no command presence somehow getting creatures to respond to her anyway. Definitely not because I wanted to understand how she did it. Definitely not because watching her sit on a dirty floor, humming to a terrified baby monster, had made something in my logical, analytical brain short-circuit with curiosity. Research purposes only. I told myself this very firmly as I watched the downloaded footage for the third time, analyzing every micro-expression, every subtle shift in her body language, every moment of connection between human and creature. This was going to be a fascinating case study, or it was going to be a complete disaster. Either way, I was absolutely going to keep watching. For research. Obviously, Training Hall 5 was not a hall at all. It was a cavern, a massive underground space that had been carved out of solid rock, with environmental zones ranging from scorching desert sand to frozen tundra to what looked suspiciously like a small swamp, complete with genuinely questionable water. Overhead lighting simulated natural sunlight, currently set to early dawn with pink and orange streaks across the artificial sky. Maya stood at the entrance, her breath fogging in the cool morning air, wondering what exactly she had gotten herself into. "You are early," Grell's voice echoed from somewhere in the cavern. "Surprising. You said dawn. I assumed you meant it." The old Thexian emerged from behind a cluster of rocks, carrying what appeared to be a medical kit and several pieces of protective equipment. "Most students interpret dawn as a general suggestion. I appreciate punctuality. You will need it for what comes next." He tossed her a vest made of some kind of flexible armor. Maya caught it, recognizing the standard issue protection gear used for advanced creature training. It would stop claws and minor bites, but would do absolutely nothing against serious predatory intent. "Put it on," Grell instructed, "and understand that what I am about to tell you stays between us. If word gets out that I am giving special attention to a Class F student, my reputation as a bitter, disappointed educator will be completely ruined." Maya could not help smiling as she strapped on the vest. "Your secret is safe with me." "Good. Now, I have been training hunters for 32 cycles. In that time, I have seen exactly 4 students who possessed what you demonstrated yesterday. The ability to achieve compliance without dominance, without force, without the traditional command presence we test for." "And what happened to those 4 students?" Grell's breathing tubes made a sound like a deflating balloon. "2 transferred out, convinced by instructors like me that their method was too inconsistent to rely on. 1 died in a training accident involving a creature she thought she had connected with. It ate her when she turned her back." Maya swallowed hard. "And the 4th? Became the most successful monster mediator in the outer colonies. Made a fortune resolving conflicts between settlements and territorial predators. Retired wealthy at 40, and now raises prize-winning show creatures on a private estate. So, mixed results. Very mixed. Which brings us to today. I am going to test whether what you did was luck or legitimate skill, and if it is skill, whether it works beyond baby creatures with limited cognitive function." He walked toward the desert section of the cavern, gesturing for Maya to follow. "What do you know about dune stalkers?" "Ambush predators, native to Helios 6, hunt in packs, extremely territorial, Class C threat level individually, Class A when grouped." "Correct, and absolutely not suitable for a first-week Class F student under any normal circumstances." Grell stopped at the edge of the sand zone. "Which is why you will be interacting with only one. A juvenile who has been hand-raised and is theoretically socialized to various species." "Theoretically? It bit its last 3 handlers. We are running out of volunteers willing to work with it." Before Maya could process this deeply concerning information, Grell pressed a button on a remote control. A section of the sand shifted, revealing a burrow entrance. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then something erupted from the sand like a torpedo made of scales, claws, and terrible life choices. The dune stalker was roughly the size of a large wolf, built low to the ground with a sleek, serpentine body ending in a tail covered in hooked barbs. Its head was mostly mouth, which was mostly teeth, arranged in a pattern that suggested its evolutionary ancestors had serious anger issues. 6 eyes, arranged in 2 rows, gleamed with predatory intelligence. It spotted Maya and froze, body coiling like a spring ready to release. "Do not run," Grell advised calmly, from his position safely behind a reinforced barrier that had apparently materialized while Maya was distracted by the sand missile monster. "Running triggers the chase response. You will to lose?" "Thanks for the tip," Maya said through gritted teeth, forcing herself to stand still while every instinct in her body screamed to flee, hide, or possibly curl into a ball and cry. The dune stalker circled her, moving with fluid grace across the sand. Its 6 eyes never blinked, never looked away, analyzing her from every angle. This was not like the prism back or the razor spine. Those had been babies, ultimately harmless. This creature was young but fully capable of doing serious damage if it chose. Maya tried the technique that had worked before. She relaxed her posture, avoided direct eye contact, made herself as non-threatening as possible. The dune stalker was not impressed. It hissed, a sound like steam escaping from a broken pipe, and its barbed tail lashed the sand. "It is considering whether you are food or competition," Grelly called out helpfully. "Try not to look like either." "How exactly do I—" Maya started, then stopped because the creature had moved closer, near enough that she could smell it. Hot sand, dry scales, and something sharp like ozone before a lightning strike. She made a decision that was either brilliant or suicidal. Instead of backing away, she sat down. Right there in the sand, cross-legged, making herself smaller, less imposing, vulnerable. "What are you doing?" Grell's voice rose with alarm. "Shutting up so I can think," Maya replied, closing her eyes. This was objectively insane. Closing her eyes in front of an apex predator violated every survival instinct. But she needed to stop reacting and start understanding. The prism back had been scared. The razor spine had been frustrated and bored. What was this creature feeling? She focused on the sounds, the whisper of scales on sand, the rhythmic breathing, faster than resting, slower than hunting, the soft clicking of claws as weight shifted from foot to foot. The dune stalker was not scared, was not angry. It was curious. Maya kept her eyes closed and extended one hand, palm up, in the sand beside her. An offering of nothing. An invitation to investigate without threat or challenge. Seconds crawled by like hours. Her heart hammered so hard she was certain the creature could hear it, could sense her fear through vibrations in the ground. Then, contact. Something cool and dry touched her palm. The creature's tongue, tasting her skin, gathering chemical information, learning her. Maya did not move, did not flinch, just breathed slowly, evenly, letting the dune stalker take all the time it needed. The tongue withdrew, a moment of stillness. Then weight settled against her side, warm and surprisingly heavy. The creature had laid down next to her, its body pressed against hers, head resting on her thigh. Maya opened her eyes slowly. 6 eyes stared back at her from roughly knee-level, unblinking, assessing. "Hey," she whispered. "Rough morning?" The dune stalker made a sound like a rumbling purr, crossed with a growl. Not threatening, just vocal, communicative. Maya, carefully, very carefully, moved her hand to rest on its head. The scales were smoother than she expected, warm from the simulated sun. She felt the creature's muscles tense, ready to spring away or attack, balanced on a knife edge of decision. She kept her touch light, non-demanding, just presence, just connection. The muscles relaxed. The purr growl deepened into something almost content. "Well," Grell said, and his voice sounded strange, shaken. "That is unusual." "Unusual good or unusual bad?" Maya asked, not moving, barely breathing. "Honestly, I have no idea. Stay there. Do not move. I need to make a call." He walked away, his voice fading as he spoke rapidly into a communicator. Maya caught fragments. "Yes, I am serious. No, I would not call you at this hour if it were not important. You need to see this, now." The dune stalker shifted, rolling onto its back, exposing its vulnerable underside. Its tail, still barbed and dangerous, wagged slowly back and forth. "You are a weird one, are not you?" Maya murmured, gently scratching the creature's chest where the scales gave way to softer skin. "All those handlers trying to dominate you, make you submit. Bet that made you want to bite them." The creature's purring intensified. One of its clawed feet paddled the air in apparent bliss. "Yeah, I would want to bite them too." She heard footsteps approaching, multiple sets moving quickly. The dune stalker heard them too, its head snapping up, eyes focusing on the newcomers, its body tensed, protective instinct kicking in. "Easy," Maya said softly. "They are just curious. Same as you." The creature looked at her, then back at the approaching figures, then settled back down with a huff that seemed almost annoyed. 3 people emerged into the sand zone. Grell, looking vindicated and slightly smug. A tall Draknor female with elaborate crests and official academy insignia marking her as high-ranking faculty. And me. Yes, I had finally been caught. "Researcher Vex," Grell said, gesturing to me, "has been observing your Class F sessions without authorization. Before you file a complaint, he also has the most extensive database on anomalous creature-handler bonding in the Academy archives. I thought his expertise might be relevant." I felt my sensory stalks heat with embarrassment. "I apologize for the unauthorized observation." Academic curiosity overcame professional ethics. Maya, still sitting in the sand with a potentially lethal predator using her as a pillow, somehow managed to look more amused than angry. "Let me guess, you have never seen anything like this before?" "Actually, I have seen something similar 3 times. Twice in archival footage from other training facilities, once in a documentary about a human settlement on Frost Peak Delta. Each case involved a human handler. Each case defied conventional understanding of predator-prey dynamics. The Draknor female, who I recognized as Dean Sulara, head of Advanced Creature Studies, knelt at the edge of the sand zone, her eyes fixed on the dune stalker. "This creature has been scheduled for return to the wild. Too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous for standard training protocols. Yet, here it is, exposing its vital organs to a student it met less than 20 minutes ago." "Ma'am, I did not," Maya started. "You did nothing wrong," Sulara interrupted. "In fact, you may have done something extraordinary. The question is whether you can replicate it. You want me to try this with other creatures? I want you to help me understand what you are doing so we can determine if it is teachable, instinctive, or simply reckless luck that will eventually get you killed." The dune stalker, apparently bored with the conversation, rolled back onto its stomach and began grooming Maya's hand with its tongue, which felt like being licked by warm sandpaper covered in mild acid. She winced, but did not pull away. "Can I ask a question?" Maya said. "Of course. Why does everyone assume that command presence, dominance, fear, that is the only way to work with these creatures? What if—" She hesitated, organizing her thoughts. "What if some of them are just tired of being treated like problems to solve or weapons to control? What if they want to be understood?" Silence filled the cavern. Even the dune stalker stopped grooming to look up at her. Dean Sulara exchanged glances with Grell, then with me. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of someone admitting a truth they had been avoiding for years. Because for 6,000 cycles, across hundreds of species and thousands of trainers, dominance-based methods have worked. They are reliable, predictable, and scalable. What you are suggesting requires individual attention, emotional intelligence, and a willingness to be vulnerable with creatures that could kill you. So it is harder, Maya said. Vastly. But does it work better? That, Sulara stood, brushing sand from her uniform, is what we are going to find out. Congratulations, Okonkwo. You have just been transferred to an experimental independent study program. You will continue attending Class F for standard coursework, but you will also report here every morning for specialized training. With respect, Dean, I am not sure I understand what I am doing well enough to. Neither do we. That is why it is called experimental. Sulara smiled, the expression transforming her severe features into something almost warm. You will work with researcher Vex to document your methods. Instructor Grell will supervise creature interactions for safety, and I will personally review your progress weekly. If this approach has genuine merit, it could revolutionize how we understand creature cognition and partnership. The Dunestalker, sensing the shift in energy, rose and stretched, its body rippling with predatory grace. It bumped its head against Maya's shoulder, then turned and sauntered back toward its burrow, tail swishing like a satisfied cat. Just before disappearing into the sand, it looked back at Maya one last time. Then it was gone, leaving only shifting grains as evidence it had been there at all. Get some rest, Sulara instructed. Tomorrow we start properly. Wear comfortable clothes. You are going to be spending a lot of time sitting on various types of ground. She left, her footsteps echoing into silence. Grell helped Maya to her feet, his expression unreadable. You understand this could still end badly. That creature could have torn your throat out. But it didn't. No, it did not. Which is either the beginning of something important or the setup for a tragedy. He sighed, his breathing tubes rattling. Either way, I suppose it beats teaching Class F students how to not get urinated on by baby monsters. He walked away, leaving Maya alone with me in the cavern's simulated dawn. I truly am sorry for the unauthorized observation, I said again, my sensory stalks drooping with genuine remorse. It was invasive and inappropriate. Maya surprised me by laughing. Are you kidding? You gave me an actual explanation for why weird things keep happening. That is more useful than creepy. She tilted her head, studying me. You said you have seen this before, with other humans. What happened to them? The settlement on Frost Peak Delta developed a thriving economy around creature-assisted mining. The creatures helped locate ore deposits in exchange for protection and resources. It was, I searched for the word, collaborative. And the others? One became a rehabilitation specialist for traumatized military creatures. The other died of old age, surrounded by animals she had spent 50 years understanding. So, mostly good outcomes. Mostly. But Maya, I hesitated, unsure if I had earned the right to use her first name. She nodded permission. The one common factor in every case was that the humans involved treated the creatures as individuals with emotional needs, not tools or threats. They invested time, patience, and genuine care. That level of emotional labor is exhausting. Yeah, Maya said softly, looking toward the burrow where the Dunestalker had vanished. But maybe some things are worth being exhausted for. Word spread through the academy faster than anyone expected. By the end of the week, Class F was no longer the forgotten dumping ground. Students from other classes found excuses to walk past Sublevel 3, Section K, hoping to catch a glimpse of the human who apparently befriended monsters through the revolutionary technique of being nice to them. The attention made Maya deeply uncomfortable, but Jessup seemed to thrive on it. "Yeah, I am in the same class as her," she overheard him telling a group of impressed Class C students. "We train together every day. I am actually helping her develop her techniques." Maya bit back a laugh. Jessup had spent the last 3 sessions cowering behind the equipment locker while she worked with increasingly challenging creatures. Currently, she was sitting in the middle of the training hall with what Grell had described as a medium-sized handful of nightmares. 3 creatures, all juveniles, all from different species with conflicting environmental needs and social structures. There was Snippet, the prism-back she had met on day 1, now comfortable enough to sleep on her feet during sessions. Crash, the razor spine, who had bonded so intensely that separation caused him genuine distress, resulting in property damage. And the new addition, a creature Grell had introduced that morning with the cheerful warning, "This one might actually kill you." The creature in question was a shade wing, roughly the size of a small horse, with a body that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making it appear as a moving void in reality. Its wings, folded against its back, were semi-transparent and edged with what looked like broken glass. Its face had no eyes, just a series of heat-sensing pits that tracked movement through temperature rather than sight. Shade wings were solitary, viciously territorial, and known for psychological warfare. They could project feelings of dread and panic into nearby minds, breaking prey's will to flee before ever physically attacking. Maya could feel it now, the creeping sense that something was terribly wrong, that she needed to leave immediately, that staying here was the worst decision she had ever made. She took a deep breath and started humming. Same song as always. The river song. The feeling of dread intensified. Snippet chirped nervously and pressed closer to her leg. Crash growled, low and warning, at the shade wing. "Easy," Maya murmured to both of them. "It is scared too, just showing it differently." She had learned something over the past week. Aggression was almost always fear wearing a different mask. The creatures that seemed most dangerous were often the ones most desperate to protect themselves. The shade wing circled, its body rippling like oil on water. It was testing her, pushing fear into her mind to see if she would break. Maya acknowledged the fear, felt it fully, then let it flow through her and away. Just another sensation, just information. She extended one hand, palm up, the same gesture that had worked before. An invitation, a choice. The shade wing stopped circling, its heat pits focused on her hand, analyzing the thermal signature. Then its attention shifted to her face, reading the warmth patterns of blood flow, stress response, emotional state. Whatever it saw must have confused it, because the projected dread faltered, flickering like a bad hologram. "Yeah," Maya said softly. "I am scared. But I am not running." Big difference. The creature tilted its head, a gesture so similar to human curiosity that Maya had to smile despite her pounding heart. Then it did something no one in the observation room, and yes, there were now always people in the observation room, expected. It folded its wings completely, making itself smaller, less threatening. Then it approached and gently, almost delicately, touched its face to her extended palm. The contact sent a shock of sensation through Maya's nervous system. Not pain, but information. She could feel the creature's confusion, its loneliness, its desperate need for connection that its own instincts made nearly impossible to achieve. "I know," she whispered. "Everyone expects you to be one thing, but maybe you are tired of being that thing." The Shadewing's body rippled, colors briefly flickering across its surface before settling back into light-absorbing darkness. It lowered itself to the ground beside her, wings mantling protectively over both her and the other two creatures. In the observation room, Dean Solara turned to me, her expression unreadable. "How many creatures now?" I checked my notes. 16, across 8 different species, ranging from Class E to Class B threat levels, 0 aggressive incidents, 0 injuries, 100% compliance without traditional dominance displays. "Impossible," someone muttered. I recognized the voice of Instructor Callis, who had relegated Maya to Class F in the first place. "Clearly not," Solara replied dryly. "The question is what we do with this information. If her method is teachable, it could change everything. If it is unique to her, then we have a significant diplomatic and strategic asset we need to protect and utilize appropriately." "Or," Callis said, his tone bitter, "it is an anomaly that will fail catastrophically the first time she encounters a creature that does not respond to gentle feelings and humming." As if summoned by his skepticism, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. "Containment breach," a mechanical voice announced. "Sector 9, Class A threat. All students evacuate to safe zones. Combat teams respond immediately." The training hall's doors sealed automatically. Through the reinforced windows, Maya could see students running, instructors barking orders, security teams mobilizing with heavy weapons. "What is in Sector 9?" she asked Grell, who had appeared beside her looking more alert than she had ever seen him. "Nightmare-class entities, fully mature apex predators used for advanced combat training." His breathing tubes compressed with stress. "They should not be able to breach containment. The enclosures are rated for..." Another alarm. Closer this time. "Creature has entered sub-level 3, the mechanical voice announced with infuriating calm. "Seeking shelter." The sealed door to the training hall buckled. Once, twice, on the third impact it tore from its reinforced frame and clattered to the floor. What entered was something out of evolutionary nightmares. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall, built like a bear, designed by someone who thought bears were not terrifying enough. Its body was covered in chitinous plates that overlapped like armor. 6 legs ending in claws that gouged the concrete floor. A head that was all predatory angles and far too many teeth. Eyes that glowed with bioluminescent fury. A void maw. Adult. Fully mature. Absolutely, definitely, not something a first-year student should ever be in the same room with. It roared, a sound that made Maya's bones vibrate and her teeth ache. Snippet vanished into the prism-back enclosure, making sounds of pure terror. Crash tried to position himself between Maya and the threat, but was clearly outmatched and knew it. The Shadewing spread its wings fully, projecting waves of dread so intense that several people in the observation room actually passed out. Maya stood, placing herself between the cowering creatures and the void maw, her mind racing through everything she had learned over the past week. This creature was not scared, was not curious, was not looking for connection. It was in pain. She could see it now, the way it favored its left side, the way its breathing came in harsh gasps, the way its movements were slightly uncoordinated. Something was wrong. "Hey," she said, her voice somehow steady despite her terror. "You are hurt." The void maw's eyes focused on her, its lips pulled back from its teeth in what was definitely not a smile. Yeah, I see you. I see you are angry and hurting and probably terrified because something went wrong, and now you are in a place you do not recognize with your side on fire, and nowhere feels safe. The creature took a step forward. Maya heard shouting from the observation room, telling her to run, to hide, to do literally anything other than what she was doing. She stayed still. "I am not going to hurt you," she said. "I am also not going to try to dominate you or capture you or any of that. But I see blood on your side. I see you are injured, and I am guessing that hurts worse than you can handle right now." The Void Maw made a sound like grinding metal, pain vocalization, confirmation. "If you let me, I will help, but only if you choose it. Your choice. Not mine. Not anyone else's." Behind her, Crash made an encouraging rumble. The Shade Wing's dread projection shifted, somehow conveying support rather than fear. Even Snippet poked its head out, chirping softly. The Void Maw looked at Maya, then at the creatures flanking her. Then back at Maya. It lowered itself to the ground with a groan that spoke of serious pain. Then, in a gesture that would be analyzed and debated in academic circles for years afterward, it rolled onto its side, exposing the injury. A deep gash, probably from broken containment equipment, leaking luminescent blood. Maya approached slowly, speaking constantly, maintaining verbal contact. "Okay, I see it. That looks awful. I am going to need medical supplies. Grell?" The old Thexian was already moving, appearing in the training hall entrance with a medical kit designed for large creatures. His hands shook as he passed it to Maya. She opened it, found the wound sealant and antiseptic designed for Chitinous species. "This is going to sting. I am sorry. I will be as gentle as I can." The Void Maw's eyes tracked her every movement as she cleaned the wound. It growled, a sound that vibrated through the floor, but did not move, did not attack. She applied the sealant, watching as it hardened over the injury, stopping the bleeding. The creature's breathing eased slightly. "There. Better?" She sat back on her heels, exhausted from adrenaline. "You are going to need actual medical attention from someone qualified. But that should hold until—" The Void Maw's head swung toward her. For a moment, Maya thought she had miscalculated, that the pain and fear would override everything, and she was about to become a cautionary tale. Then the creature's tongue, rough as granite, licked her face once. A gesture of gratitude? Acknowledgement? Something. It stood, moving more carefully now, and walked to the corner of the training hall farthest from the entrance. There, it curled up, making itself as small as its massive frame allowed, and closed its eyes. Waiting. Trusting. Combat teams arrived minutes later to find a Class A threat creature sleeping peacefully in the corner, while a Class F student sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by smaller creatures, still humming the same song she had been humming since day one. Dean Solara entered last, surveyed the scene, and said in a voice of someone whose entire worldview had just been gently but firmly relocated, "I believe we need to reconsider our entire training curriculum." 3 months later, Maya stood before an assembly of Academy faculty, visiting researchers and representatives from 12 planetary governments. The failed Class F student was now the subject of the most intensive study the Academy had conducted in 50 years. "The key misunderstanding," she explained, using holographic displays to show footage of her sessions, "is thinking that connection requires similarity. We assumed creatures would only respond to those who mirrored their own dominant structures. But what if She paused, gathering her thoughts. What if they are just tired of everyone treating them like problems instead of people? She gestured to the creatures arranged around her. Snippet, now fully grown and capable of projecting hard-light constructs that could slice through steel, napped on her feet. Crash, who had refused to bond with any other handler, sat alert and protective. The Shadewing, officially named Echo because Maya was terrible at dramatic naming conventions, mantled its wings over both of them. And, in the back, taking up significant space, the Void Maw she had treated, now officially designated as her partner creature. She had named him Bert. Yes, Bert, a 3-meter-tall nightmare apex predator named Bert. The assembled officials looked somewhere between fascinated and deeply concerned. The implications for colonization, resource management, and interspecies diplomacy are significant, Solara added. If creatures can be partners rather than tools or threats, entire ecological systems become collaborative rather than competitive. But can it be taught? Someone asked. Or is this specific to Okonkwo? I stepped forward, sensory stalks fully extended, holding my comprehensive research documentation. Over the past 3 months, we have identified 4 other students who demonstrate similar potential. Interestingly, 3 are human, 1 is Quillen. All share certain psychological traits: empathy testing in the 98th percentile, patience levels significantly above average, and a willingness to appear vulnerable in situations where traditional training emphasizes projection of strength. So, humans are naturally better at this? The question came with an edge of resentment. Not exactly, I corrected. Humans simply have less evolutionary pressure toward dominance hierarchies in this context. They did not evolve as apex predators themselves, which makes them more comfortable with collaborative approaches. But the Quillen student demonstrates that it is not exclusively human. It is, I paused, finding the right term, a personality type, rather than a species trait. Maya smiled at that. She had spent weeks helping me understand that distinction. What about combat applications? A military representative asked. Can these creatures still be deployed in conflict situations? The Void Maw, Bert, opened one eye and growled. Just a little. Just enough to make the representative step back. Bert says that is a conversation for another time, Maya translated dryly, and he makes a compelling argument. Laughter rippled through the assembly, nervous but genuine. The presentation continued for another hour, with demonstrations, data analysis, and carefully worded diplomatic discussions about resource allocation and program expansion. But Maya's attention kept drifting to the observation windows, where current Class F students watched with expressions ranging from hope to envy to determination. After the assembly ended, she found Jessup waiting outside. So, he said, managing to look both proud and slightly bitter, you are famous now. Revolutionary teaching methods. Interspecies cooperation expert. Probably going to get a bunch of fancy job offers. Probably, Maya agreed. Good for you, really. He meant it, she could tell. For what it is worth, I am sorry I was such an idiot at the beginning. The whole alpha predator thing was compensation for feeling inadequate, Maya suggested gently. Yeah, that. He laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. I transferred to equipment maintenance, by the way. Turns out I am actually good at fixing things. Who knew? I knew. You rebuilt that containment lock in half the time Grell expected. You noticed that? I notice a lot of things, including that you have been helping the new Class F students adjust. That is good work, Jessup. He flushed. the very human gesture of embarrassment, warming Maya's heart. Yeah, well, somebody should tell them that failing the first test does not mean failing everything. Wish someone had told me. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching students and creatures move through the academy halls together, the old hierarchies slowly shifting into something new. Maya? Jessup asked. Do you think it will actually change things, long term? She looked at Bert, who had squeezed himself into a hallway designed for much smaller creatures and was now stuck, grumbling about architecture. She looked at Echo, who was delicately stealing food from passing students' lunch trays. She looked at Crash and Snippet, playing what appeared to be a very confused game of tag. I think, she said finally, that we spent so long assuming the only way to work with powerful things was to dominate them that we forgot to ask if maybe, just maybe, they wanted something different. And yeah, I think that changes everything. Behind them, Dean Solara appeared, looking harried but satisfied. Okonkwo, you have 3 government officials, 2 research institutions, and 1 very persistent documentary crew requesting interviews. Also, Bert is stuck in the hallway, and maintenance is threatening to quit if they have to extract him again. Maya sighed. I will handle Bert. Tell everyone else I am available tomorrow. And Dean? Yes? Class F. I want to keep teaching them. Whatever else happens, whatever programs get developed, I want to make sure the students who get told they failed, that they do not have what it takes, I want them to know that is not the end of the story. Solara's expression softened. Consider it done. Though technically you would be teaching while also being enrolled, which creates some amusing administrative complications. My favorite kind, Maya said with a grin. She walked toward Bert, already planning how to coax a 3-meter apex predator out of a 2-meter hallway without anyone getting hurt or filing additional maintenance complaints. Behind her, I watched with my datapad, still recording, still documenting, still trying to understand exactly how a human with no command presence had somehow commanded respect from creatures that should have been impossible to reach. The answer, I was beginning to understand, was that she had never tried to command at all. She had simply asked. And when the creatures answered, she had listened. Revolutionary indeed.